Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Wednesday, the 20th of March. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Chris Jack. How's it going, Chris?
Not too bad, Derek. Another day down, another day closer to Rangers being back in action. Slowly but surely ticking off this international break.
Yeah, it seems like a long way away. I've got to admit, Rangers back in action on the 30th of March. Just 10 days to go. Not that we're counting or anything like that. Right, before we get stuck into all things Rangers, just a quick word for our sponsors, MPH Boilers. They are the guys to go to, folks, if that is something you're thinking of. If you're looking to upgrade your heating system, plumbing, you name it, these guys do the biz. The all-important links are in the description below. Do give them a call. And you can also, if you mention MPH Rangers as well, you'll get a cracking deal. So do go and check them out. Right, let's dive into it. Folks, if you want to get your questions over to myself and Chris, then please do so. We'll answer as many as we possibly can. Let's address news yesterday, though, Chris. First of all, when Barisich, we reported this last week. Of course, he is out of contract at Ibrox in the summertime. Trabzonspor, I believe, last week were keen on acquiring him in the summertime, and his contract is up. It's now been reported over in Turkey that Barisich has agreed personal terms and will move to Turkey upon the expiry of his contract in the summertime. Decent move for him, I'd probably say, although, I mean, going over to Turkey, just need to ask Ryan Kent about it, and I'm sure he would warn Bonner against moving over there. But yeah, listen, I've said it before, I would have been astounded if Bonner was offered a new deal. I think he's been a steady servant, been a good buy all in, considering the money that Rangers paid for him to Osijek back in, 2018 it was, I think, after he impressed against Rangers in the Europa League qualifier. He has had his ups and downs. He has suffered confidence issues throughout his time at Ibrox, but I think he'll leave with everyone's best wishes, Chris. What do you make of this news? I think he'll be one of a number of players that will be departing in the summer.
I think it's the sort of move you almost expected him to make. And I'd been really surprised if he'd managed to get a Premier League move, for example. Been surprised if he was going to like a decent side in one of the top European leagues. I think a move to the likes of the Turkish league was always on the. It was always the type of move he'd potentially make. I think we've said over the course of the last few weeks, I know Bonner's name has come up quite a lot. For me, he goes with best wishes if this turns out to be the case, and we are in the final weeks of his Rangers career. I think he's been a good servant for Rangers. He's played his part in some big games. He's played his part in some big disappointments, but he's not alone in that. That's not a single-handed thing. I think over the last few years, there's obviously been a number of frustrations for Rangers. More league titles should have been won. More domestic cups should certainly have won. So he's not leaving with a medal haul that he perhaps should have. But I think we can say that about so many members of this squad, past and present. So I think he's been a good servant. Overall, he's been a great buy. Overall, he's been great to deal with. I certainly wish him well for the next stage of his career. It's probably looking like one big payday. You'd imagine he's a couple of years in Turkey, then maybe goes back to Croatia, and that's then time to hang up the boots. But I think it's that you sometimes just get a feeling with players that it's coming to the end. It's coming to a natural end, and I think that's the case for Barisich. I think it's right for him to move on. And if you're Rangers and you're Clement and Niels Coppen, you look at how can we reinvest that money? How can we improve that left back area? Probably by giving Ridvan that jersey for next season and saying, look, you're the first choice. Go and show us what you can do. Go and take it to the next level. And then Rangers also have to move into the market and go and try and sign a replacement to give us a bit of competition there. But I think the way that Ridvan has really come to the fore in the last few weeks, Barisich again having some difficult moments. I think it is just a time for all parties to move on. But certainly no hard feelings about Hope. I think Burnley has been good for Rangers. Rangers have certainly been good for him. It's boosted his European aspirations. He's spoken to us a couple of times about getting to go and play in a European final, which was one of the dreams. Playing in the Champions League was one of his dreams, and Rangers have allowed him to go and do that. Managed to play at major finals for his country as well. So I think there's a lot there for Barisich to be thankful for Rangers for. But I think he's been over the piece. I think he's been very good for the club as well.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sure the majority wish him well for his future endeavours over there as he looks set to head to Turkey in the summer. There's a few questions came in just off the back of that, and looking ahead to the future at left back, Hugo Bear says young Robbie Fraser should be Ridvan's backup until the end of the season. What do you make of that, Chris? Do you think I still think Bonner will contribute at various points between now and the end of the season? There's no point jettisoning him and not using him if he's fit and available, then he should be part of the first team squad and back up to Ridvan at any point if Ridvan needs to take him out for a rest or whatever reason. Or do you pitch in young Robbie Fraser? Johnny Yefeko is another one that can play over there as well. Or are you keeping Barisich around and using him between now and the end of the season?
I'm keeping Barisich around, and I'm using him as often as we have to between now and the end of the season. Yeah. It's so much to play for, so many games, so many really important games for Rangers. It's not the time to be throwing young guys in with very little experience if you don't have to. If the season was a write-off and we were 12 points behind in the league, maybe only had the Scottish Cup to go for, you can then say, well, it's time to start actually planning for next season. You can try different things tactically, try different things in terms of personnel as and when the squad allows, try different things in terms of some of the academy players, but there's far too much at stake right now for Rangers. It's not the time to be pitching young guys in. I think we spoke about Robbie Fraser a couple of weeks ago. He's not someone I've seen a huge deal of. I've seen him in a couple of games towards the end of last season, and you also see the odd clip and stuff this season. But I've not had a chance to properly sit and watch him. I don't know if he's the future, or if he is just someone who he's in the squad, he's got a contract, but it's going to find it really difficult to make that step up. We know there's a lot of chat about Hefty, the Brazilian left back, during the January window. It looked like that one was getting done, and then it didn't. And then there was different discussions about if that's something Rangers will come back to in the summer. I would be surprised if Rangers don't go into the market in the summer and try and sign another left back. Fraser, I think it seems to be there, but not quite there. He doesn't look like a McCausland type who's always been pushing, keep pushing the envelope, if you like, and been there and been ready. And I say, given what's at stake, given the magnitude of the games that Rangers have got going, unless something happens to Ridvan, something happens to Bonner, something happens to Ben Davies, I'd imagine. I think it's probably a more likely pick at left back than Robbie Fraser right now. I just don't see the manager. Going down that road of pitching young guys in when he doesn't have to. I think there's far too much at stake for Rangers right now.
Yeah, Robbie Fraser's an interesting one because, of course, captain of the B team, but we've not really seen much of him in a first team setting. So, I think that is one that manager will make an assessment on in the summertime, whether he can be part of the first team moving forward. As you touched on, Ben Davies, that moves us nicely on. This comment from Peter MacArthur says, Ben Davies, why hasn't he even featured in the squad lately? Does Big Phil not fancy him? Probably a few things, really. I mean, he was coming back from an injury, and I think John Souttar has been playing really well alongside Connor Goldson. I've seen an argument suggesting that of the two, Goldson should be the one to make way with Leon Balogun coming back in. But Ben Davies, he has been on the substitutes bench on a few occasions, Chris, but we haven't seen him in that starting 11. I just think that the manager prefers the Goldson, Souttar, and then Balogun central defenders, and then Davies, I think, is fourth choice. I would assume he will be one of the players that Rangers will be looking to move on in the summertime, and they'll be, I'd imagine, be hoping to bring in a bit of cash for him as well. There is a host of English clubs down south that I'm sure would be keen on taking Davis in the summertime, but I think it's a whole number of reasons why he's not getting a look in at this moment in time.
He's almost become something of a forgotten man. Now, there's so much talk about every time we see the manager, it's how's Sima, how's Cantwell, how's Matondo, how's McCausland, how's Wright. Also, we then had the Cortez situation, and Ben Davies coming back from injury and then being in and out of the squad. It's not really been a talking point. I think that probably speaks to how well overall the Goldson and Suter partnership have done. I know there's been some difficult moments there at times, and they've not always covered themselves in glory, but I think overall during the run that they've had together, I think they've been very good. Balogun really lets the side down. It always looks steady. It's just a shame that he's not 5 years younger, because if he was, you would offer him a contract for next season, no problem at all. As it stands, would I offer him one? Probably not, to be honest. I'd like to see a bit of movement in that centre half area over the course of the summer. And let's see Rangers go and invest a bit of money in that over the window. Ben Davies clearly falls into that category of someone who I think will be dispensable. I think he's someone who is not going to command a huge transfer fee. Could you get back the $3 million that you paid for him? I think potentially to the right buyer, to a championship club. I still think they would see the value in him. There's every chance Rangers may have to take a loss. You're certainly not going to make any money on him, but I don't think they would lose a huge chunk of it. Again, you then say to Clement and Niels Coppin, you've got that money, go and reinvest it in someone who's more suited to your style, who's more suited to what you want to do with the side going forward. Ideally, you go and invest that kind of money in a starting centre half rather than a backup one. I just think Davies, it's just not worked out. I don't think he's ever really convinced. I thought at the start of the season there wasn't really much between him and John Suter. I think Goldson was obviously the one who was nailed on, and we were doing our predicted teams every week, and it was always a toss up. Now, do you go Davies? Do you go Suter? I didn't think there's much in it. These last few weeks, I think Suter has been really good. Obviously earned his place in the Scotland squad. Hopefully gets some minutes for the national side over the next couple of games. Hopefully he's then heading off to the Euros in the summer. Now, what a boost that would be, what a transformation that would be for John Suter, given his injury situation over the last few seasons of his career. And he'll then go into next season thinking, I'm one of the first names on this team sheet. I've more than done enough to earn my place. Ben Davies, for me, hasn't done enough to earn his place in that Rangers squad next season. And again, nothing against him, but I just don't think it's not worked out, and I don't think he would be one that the fans would be really that upset if he was allowed to move on, and we saw a bit of movement in that area.
Listen, thank him for Betis, and listen, I think he's a good defender. There's question marks over his physicality, especially given the rough and tumble that is Scottish football. I think he will do a job for any team down there in the Championship, or I'm not too sure if he'd like to drop into League One, but there's loads of clubs that I'm sure Ben Davies would improve down there in England, and I would be surprised if he was to remain at Rangers next season. That ties in with Phil's point here, just on the centre backs. He says, do we need a clear out of these centre backs? Suter stays. I'm like you, Chris. I think I wouldn't be offering Leon Balogun a contract. The only reason I would be giving them one would be just to be in and around the dressing room. He has a good presence, of course, good guy to have around. But I think Rangers need younger defenders in there. Connor Goldson's an interesting one. I don't think he's been anywhere near his best this season. Is it perhaps time to look to cash in on Connor as well, or do you keep him and Suter and then try and bring in another two?
For me, Suter's guaranteed his place in the squad. I think he definitely deserves it. As we've discussed, I think Ben Davies is sold. I think Leon Balogun is released. I think Leon King probably moves on as well. It's another one who it's just not worked out for. I know he's had some good moments, had some difficult times. I just don't think it's worked out, and he's another player of a certain age who has just to go and play football. If not for the good of his career, if he's not going to be a first choice for Rangers next season, he can't have another season. Sorry, of just being in the squad and getting the odd 5-10 minutes here and there. That's at this stage of his career. That's not what Leon King needs. I think it's probably the best that he moves on. Connor Goldson's a really interesting one here. I'm not
He's been there a long time. I mean,
has been there a long time. Has had, again, like a number of guys in that squad, has had some good moments. Has had some bad moments. Is also one of the higher earners within the squad, but is one of the bigger presences and one of the bigger figures within that squad. We know that we can rely on him to churn out the games. He's robust. He knows the club. He knows the league. There's a lot of boxes being ticked on the pro side of Connor Goldson. I think his form in the last couple of weeks hasn't been that great. I think he's been really slack on the ball at times. Yep. There's been mistakes, and he seems to have put himself in the spotlight amongst a number of fans. He's one of the names that's coming up more and more often of people questioning his place in the side. I think it'd be really interesting to see what the manager does with Goldson. And I don't really know what side of the fence I fall on at present, to be honest, because there are those positives. But again, you look at it and you say, well, can we get someone who is slightly younger, who's slightly quicker, who's slightly more physical? Connor, I think, again, has been a wonderful servant for the club. I think it's no one got to that target of 300 games quicker, I believe. So I think there's a lot there to like about Goldson. I think you do notice him when he's not there. I think Rangers will notice him when he's not there, but that's not to say that they can't go and take a bit of money and reinvest it and try and do bigger and try and do better. Ultimately, we've probably seen the best of Connor Goldson at this stage of his career. He's not going to get any quicker. He's not going to get any sharper. He is going to get more experienced, but it's then whether that experience can then offset some of the physical declines. But I think that's a big question for the manager over the course of the summer. And really interesting to see how he decides to play it. If it's not this summer, you're then looking at it in either next summer, certainly the summer after that, at some point. And I think the same question falls on James Tavernier as well. Now, these guys been wonderful servants. Mm-hmm. What's the contingency? What's the succession plan? Is there one? Who's going to be the right back after Tav? Who's going to be that stalwart of the centre back? Who's going to be that after Connor Goldson? That decision might not be made this summer, but certainly over the next couple of seasons, Rangers have to have a plan in place for that. Because you look at the way the squad has been managed and the evolution of it over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons, how many times have we spoken about that planning just not being there, the record and transfer market just not being good enough, and that's something clearly falls on Neil Scotland, falls on the football board to ensure Rangers don't make the same mistakes that we've seen over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, he too is 31 years of age as well. So there was a comment coming in saying it is an ageing backline. It's a backline that's been together for a good number of years now. So I think that it does need to be an injection of freshness. Some interesting comments coming out off the back of that. Ian McPhee with a point. Goldson has been a great servant, but his time is up. Clement will bring in younger, hungrier players. CG at 55. Gerrard could do us a favour and buy Goldson for 80 million. Yeah, if you don't mind doing that, Stevie, that would be absolutely sensational, buddy. Just on Balogun, the Trying Scotsman says Balogun needs retained. He's fit, solid, and still has the legs. Yep, listen, it's hard to argue with that. I just think Rangers need a bit of freshness, like I said. There's some young, hungry defenders in there. King Charles Spaniel says, get Lewis Mayo back. Of course, doing well at Kilmarnock. I'm not too sure that is the best route to go down, but often have a fascination about players once they leave Rangers, about bringing them back. But yeah, listen, I think he's doing a good job over there. But let us know in the comments, folks. Would you like Lewis Mayo back at Ibrox? And there's a point coming in from Day in the Life just about incomings. We've discussed the outgoings, particularly in the back line. But he says, how many players do you think we will buy in the summer, lads? I think that's all dependent on a number of factors. Outgoings, as we just touched on there. Whether Rangers win the league or not, it factors in what budget Philip Clement has to spend on players. Just off the top of my head, Chris, I think I've said this in a number of videos. I'd like a left back, 2 centre halves, 2 centre forwards, and probably a backup goalkeeper to Jack Butland. So that's 5. And then if we're bringing in Cortez or Sima, call it 6. Any more on 6?
That's just for starters for me. I think you're looking at a backup right back as well, unless I think we've all kind of settled on Dujon Sterling being a midfielder now rather than a right back. I know we spoke about Adam Devine on the members video yesterday. If he's not going to be the backup to Tav, then you need to go and sign one of them to try and ease the physical burden on him over the next couple of seasons. I don't think we're that far away. I don't think we're being that greedy, and that's basically for starters. That's before you then say, well, what else is going to be trimmed from the squad? You could easily need someone else to come and play wide right. If you look at Scott Wright potentially moving on, is a bit more movement in the middle of the pitch. Ryan Jack perhaps also out of contract. Nico Raskin, someone that I know people have been really speaking a lot about in terms of his place. So I think that's. I don't think you're really being. I don't think you're being that wild with that list there. I would have to agree with all of it. And all these things are going to cost money. There was a big investment in the squad last year, about £20 million or so. If Rangers can go and invest at that level again, safe to say it has to be spent better. I have to see real value for money. It's something the chairman stressed in the financials in November. It's a point that was made right about the AGM, and the appointment of Niels Coppin is something that the manager has mentioned in the press conference as well. We need to see more of a strike rate, and we need to see Rangers buying low and potentially selling high, but ultimately buying low and then being successful with them. So I think the transfer model, the transfer record over the last almost since the 55 season has not been good enough. If the squad somehow get over the line this season, it'd be a remarkable achievement. But that doesn't mean to say that all is right with the world and that this squad isn't good enough to go again. It's lopsided in some areas. It's not fit for Clement's purposes in other areas, and I think there needs a lot of tinkering still to be done to make this squad really fit for purpose.
Yeah, James with a point just on the goalkeeper. He says, I'd keep McCrory as a backup keeper. He has to move on to play games. He can't continue to be a backup goalkeeper for me. He's too good for that. Listen, he is a top-class backup goalkeeper, but if he wants to be part of Scotland squads going forward, he has to go out and join a club and be a number one somewhere, Robbie McCrory. So if Jack Butland... If Rangers don't receive mega money in the summer, even if they did for Jack Butland, and God forbid he moves on, I would still imagine Rangers would look to bring in another goalkeeper as opposed to just going with Robbie. So, I can see Robbie moving on in the summertime. Jim with an interesting point as well, just on Cole McKinnon, who, well done to him. He got called up to the Scotland under-21 squad for their qualifier with Kazakhstan. I think they played. There was 3 withdrawals. He says, does anyone think Cole McKinnon will get a chance next season? Well, he's getting a chance now. If he keeps impressing, then I'm sure there's no doubt about it. He'll be part of the first team squad next season, Chris.
I think a lot depends on how he does over the next couple of weeks. It might become more difficult for him to get himself in the squad. If you look at Cantwell coming back, we're hoping that Ryan Jack will be back fit and firing at some point. And also, as time goes on, the squad, fingers crossed, will start to beef up and start to look a bit healthier. That might limit Cole McKinnon's chances of getting some game time. But if he catches the eye in training, if he does everything the manager asks of him, if attitude's good and he shows that he's improving, he's taking on the tactical messages, then if he does all of those things, like any player within the squad, he will get his chance. I think the manager has shown that he will be open to giving players a chance, but a lot of faith in Ross McCausland. I think overall that has been repaid. I know Ross is someone again who has had his critics amongst the support at times. I think we've said in the last couple of weeks that it's been that's been harsh. I think he's had a great season. He's had a great rise, and everything is there for Ross to go bigger and go better again next season. I think the point in general about young players coming through, again, it's something the manager has mentioned. Rangers have to get better at it. Rangers need to do it more often. And someone like Cole McKinnon, he's had his loan spells. He's had some difficult times. He's had his moment at Tynecastle when he scored his first Rangers goal. He's now played European football. He's played, also played in the Scottish Cup one at Hearts. He is in and around it. He's there on merit. And if he continues to merit his place, then he'll continue to get his chance. And I think that will then set him up for next season. If he does well over these next couple of months, he can then find himself part of the conversation going forward.
Yep. Let's get this. Two other comments we'll get to before we wrap up. Robert with the point. Derek Chris, why couldn't the Dundee game have been played this week, regardless of the international break? Well, it's because of that. There's a number of players that have joined their international teams. Fabio Silva is away. John Suter is away. Ridvan Yilmaz has been called up to the Turkey squad as well. As we just touched on as well, Cole McKinnon is away. Ross McCausland has withdrawn from Northern Ireland's friendly on Friday to recover from injury, but he's not really ready. But it's just a case of there's too many players unavailable to Rangers, Chris, I'd imagine.
Add Rabbi Matondo to that list as well. He's away with Wales, so if they were to play... Diomande is another one. If they were to play the game tomorrow, it would be you, me, and Josh playing in the middle of the pitch. Rangers are somewhat short of options, so but still, I'd like to get a date for that Dundee game. I know there's obviously two midweeks either side of the Old Firm game. I think people have already made their minds up which midweek it will fall on, but it's not been confirmed by the league and not being confirmed by the club. So still waiting to see when that game will get played. But playing it during this fortnight was never on the agenda, and it's certainly a non-starter.
Yeah, if it gets played between Hibs and Celtic, and two minds about that. Of course, Celtic would have a free week. Although if Rangers do play that game, they could go back top of the division, but there is a risk about picking up any more injuries and such like suspensions, perhaps, if cards are being dished out. So, we'll be the first to know, folks, when that game will be rescheduled. And we'll wrap up with this one. Stephen with the point directed at your good self, Chris. He says, Chris, can you see a revamp of the forward line? Sort of just touched on that. I can see Danilo being the only out-and-out striker at the club in the summer, so I think Rangers need to bring in at least two centre forwards. In terms of sort of right wing, left wing, I can imagine Philip Clement will be looking to bring in, as I touched on earlier, Cortez or Sima. Probably would be surprised if both of them were to arrive at the club. But I can see a revamp, 2, 3, even at a push, 4 players coming in that forward line.
It's almost like being transported back 12 months, and we're saying we're going to see a revamp of the Rangers forward line. As I said earlier on, we did spend quite a lot of money on it over the course of the last summer. I think it's an area of the squad that needs a lot of improvement. I think we mentioned in the show the other day there about Dessers. I'm not convinced that he's a mainstay of the Rangers squad next season. Sam Lammers clearly isn't. Rangers will take whatever money they can get back for him and try and reinvest that. Seaman Cortez, if you could somehow do a deal to sign both of them, I think that gives you real pace, gives you real threat, gives you real options. There's a lot of financial outlay on that. And also through the middle, I think we've all but written off Kamal Roof's chances of getting a contract, despite his comments to the Sunday papers the other day there. So you're looking at a couple of number 9s coming in. The wide areas, for me, need a lot of quality in them. If we could get Seaman Cortez, what a starter for 10 that is. But you're then potentially looking at Matondo. What does the future hold for him? Is he again someone that you can recycle the money? Scott Wright, again, I think people have made their mind up that he's not going to be part of it next season. McCausland, I would like to see be part of it, but we can't just rely on him all the time. Fabio Silva, chances of keeping him, who knows, completely up in the air. I know he spoke about it after the Hibs game and sounded positive and didn't really close the door on it, but there's many, many millions of reasons why whether it's potentially a
Yeah,
non-starter for Rangers.
There's reports down south, Chris, suggesting that Wolves will be prepared to let him go in the summer for £15 million. Rangers are not spending £15 million on Fabio Silva or any.
No, they're not spending 15 on anyone. That's quite if you're Wolves, it's quite a hit to take on someone.
Yeah.
It's the depreciation on him has not been great.
No.
I think if Rangers could somehow get him on another loan deal, it would be a brilliant bit of business. But I would be surprised if Fabio was part of the squad next season. So I know you ranged off a lot of positions. We're easily looking at 4 just in terms of forward line, just to give us a team to put on the pitch and give you a wee bit of backup. So for me, you're definitely looking at a couple of strikers, 2 wingers, or a winger for each side, and someone that ideally can play both, just for a bit of backup. And I don't think we're being greedy in that, because that forward line is something. How often do we talk about it during the January transfer window in terms of needing more goals and more creativity within the squad?
Yeah.
That's definitely going to be the case heading into next season as well.
Yep, absolutely. It will be a priority of Philip Clement and Niels Coppin come the summertime. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Huge thanks to Chris, as ever. On the website this morning, a great piece from Joshua on James Tavernier and discussing his role and how it's changed during his time at Rangers. It's well worth a read. Go and check it out. We'll be back. Well, I'll be back a little later on for I think we'll do a Rangers Q&A show for the YouTube members. There was me and Chris on yesterday discussing his interview with Adam Devine. You can go and check out as well. So plenty of Rangers content to keep you entertained despite the lack of action with regards to the Light Blues at this moment in time. But yep, thank you for tuning in as ever. We'll be back again tomorrow. I think Joshua is on with me tomorrow morning. So we hope you can join us for that. If I don't see you later on, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye for now.